Hi, Vinod. Welcome to HackerRank AI Day. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I don't know if you remember when we publicly launched HackerRank in 2012. I remember giving a demo of the product, and there were a lot of different coding contests, and one of them was Quora AI Challenge. You asked me to stop the presentation, ignored all the other tiles, and said like, "Hey, I want to double click on what this AI challenge is about for Quora. What is the data set that you're using?" And fast forward 12 years, pretty much every coding contest on HackerRank is AI. Now AI has become quote unquote mainstream. Did you think it was going to take 12 years? Was it expected sooner, faster? What's your
You
take?
know, I've been writing about AI since early 2012. I wrote my first two blogs on AI in January of 2012. So I've had this long term belief, but I also had this belief that you can't predict timing.
Hmm.
2014 or so, we made our first deep learning investment, didn't work out. It was acqui-hired by Google. We've made some other investments. But in 2018 is when we decided to invest in OpenAI. Again, I don't think anybody can predict timing,
Hmm.
but you can predict something will happen
Yeah.
and it'll be important or not. And I think that's the bet I've always placed. This is important. Let's go do it. And the timing will be when it will be.
So it's also been 12 years since I started the company, and I haven't seen this level of dynamic change in technology happening. There seems to be a breakthrough every week, sometimes every day, larger context length, agent-like behavior, multimodal reasoning. So, what advice do you have for people who are building
Yeah.
companies on what they can anchor onto if what you're building today might be irrelevant tomorrow?
I think much more is predictable than people realize. If you are at Pika or Runway,
Uh-huh.
you know what's going to happen. I jokingly say half of the YC class will be obsoleted before they graduate because they're building things that are obviously going to get run over by the next generation of an LLM, whether it's from Google or OpenAI or somebody else.
Hmm.
I think good advisors is what most of these companies are missing that tell them where the world is going and a clear understanding of where the world is going and what is the way you can invest your time and effort in developing something that'll sustain and maybe even ride the wave of new LLM features and approaches coming along. So I think that's just mostly poor advice. Not all of it is predictable, but I would guess 80% or more of what will come the next couple of years is quite predictable. But the startups that are not thinking about it will lose their shirt because something will run over them.
Yeah,
There'll be roadkill.
yeah. Maybe if you were to extend this even further than 2 years, if you were to plot the line on the rate of AI advancements, we'll likely get AGI pretty soon. I'm not going to ask you to predict which year it's going to come. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of abundance in the world, personal
Mm.
tutors, personal doctors, and all of those things. Certainly, there's an upside. But on the other hand, if humans have everything, what are they yearning for, and what happens to humanity's purpose?
Well, so this question gets asked a lot. There's the first question of where do they get their income from? But if we have enough abundance, first the world will be deflationary.
Hmm.
If all doctors are free, all teachers are free, all lawyers are free, then the world is very deflationary. So things will cost a lot less
Yeah.
in this deflationary world. And I just attended this past weekend a 2-day workshop in the economic implications of AI. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. And that abundance will create enough resources for easier distribution to take care of everybody. So there's the idea of universal basic income.
Hmm.
I first wrote about it in 2016 when I think it was in Fortune magazine, I wrote about it. So that's one question. The second question is the search for meaning.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
probably more it. Yeah.
uh, I think the answer is very different for people who are grown up.
Mm.
All of us growing up were taught to go to school. Why? So you can go to college and get a job. And so life is about getting a job.
Hmm.
And we are programmed from age 5 to get a job. Now imagine somebody born in 5 years from now. They will be taught to pursue their passion and not worry about a job. And I think those people will be in a very different world than the way we think of the world. Just like old people think of the digital world differently than young people do.
Yeah.
A generation 10 years from now will be dramatically different on how they think they or what they think they need to do with their life. It'll be pursue a passion, not pursue a job.
Yeah.
And that's a really wonderful thing. And most jobs on the planet are not very nice. You know, if you have to work at a General Motors assembly line, screwing a tire onto a car for 8 hours a day for 30 years, it's slavery. It's
Yeah.
not a job, a respectable job.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of AI will free humans from this slavery and drudgery, I believe, and let them pursue their passion. The people in this interim transition whose brains are already programmed to believe we need a job to find meaning, I think will have a harder time adjusting, and some will have need a lot of help adjusting.
Yeah. You talked about the General Motors uh, fixing the bolt, mechanical assembly line worker. But if you think about today's AI, it's probably way more creative and cognitive than it is in mechanical tasks.
Mhm.
Was that surprising to you that it can write better code than it can fold a piece of T-shirt and put it in a closet predictably?
No, it's not. I think we've just seen the first generation of AI. What people call the Chat GPT moment, when it achieved visibility, is very, very recent. In fact, GPT-4 was only released about a year ago for general release.
Yeah.
So we have to take a longer lens. We've probably seen a small fraction of the development we'll see over the next 5, 10 years. The amount of energy going into it, the number of great people going into it, the amount of dollars going into it has all expanded so much, it'll result in much more innovation, and much of it in surprising ways. Will it all be transformers? Will it all be based on the paper? Attention is all you need. Very unlikely. Likely, we will see many more axes of innovation, and we will discover all that. The net result, today, if you want to make an AI more creative, you change the temperature in the model. That's sort of okay, but there'll be models that, or model post-training or pre-training, that do different things. So clearly people are chasing models for robotics that are foundation models for robotics. How that plays out, too early to tell. I will tell you, almost certainly there'll be a lot more capability in almost every direction. Coding is sort of limited in what you can do. You will be able to do a lot more with coding, but nobody's imagined that big jump. How do you get provably correct 100 lines of code, right, that compiles every single time?
Yeah.
That's all, I think, going to be feasible in the next year or two, and then keep going from there.
Lots of developers are watching this. Copilot is certainly taken on a big rage. Copilot specific to coding because it's super integrated in IDE. And there's always this doom of, okay, if AI is going to solve all of the code, it's going to write all the code, then you don't need any developers in the future. And then the other side of the argument is, no, it just reduces the toil in software development, and it's actually going to make developers even more productive. How should a developer who's becoming one or just in the process think about what the future is going to hold for a developer?
I think one has to think about what happens the next 5 or 10 years, and then what happens beyond. I think beyond 10 years, very easily, AI will allow computers to adjust to humans. Today, humans adjust to computers. We learn how to use Excel. We learn how to insert a row or delete a row or write a macro. So we learn that. We learn how to run SAP or Workday as an application. In the future, all these AIs will adapt the software to a human. So think about it. Humans talk in English. And then if you're not fully understanding what I'm saying or my specification of what I said, is incomplete, you ask me a further question and say, what about X or Y? That will be our dialogue with AI that runs the software systems. It's very, very exciting to imagine.
Yeah.
Software will adapt to humans. When in the past, humans have had to adapt to software or computers. So that's very exciting. And I think 10 years out, that's very much the view. Short term, uh, the the really good developers will all become 10x developers or 100x developers.
Yeah.
And the not so good developers will become better at their job, but they'll be in a much more competitive situation. Now, the amount of things that will need programming will be much larger. I've made a couple of predictions for the planet last November. And one of those, and they're under the highlights on my profile on Twitter, one of those is we will easily have 1 billion programmers on the planet writing code in natural language. Everything will be programmed.
Yeah.
Why is it that when you go to Amazon and I go to Amazon, we get the same website? My choices, my history is very different there.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody will get a custom website on every visit, as one little example.
Yeah.
But that's true of so many other things. And then there's fields we haven't touched, like robotics is really, really exciting. We'll see a lot of development. So do I believe the need for smart coding talent will go away? No. The difference between average and the best will increase dramatically, in my view.
So I think there are two parts to it. One is how softwares are going to be built in the future and how you're going to interact with. It's going to be super personalized, very natural like. That's how softwares will be, but how it's going to get built. Do you also think natural language would be sort of the default programming language of how it's going to get built in the future, or is it more like an outlier?
I think what we will do in software development is use multiple modalities. You might do an AST for a piece of software and say, code this for me.
Yeah.
You might talk to it and say, no, I want to see these changes in the software. So think of multiple modalities that affect how software development happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier just sketch. What do engineers do? Go up to the whiteboard and start sketching. And I think that'll be there and that'll be translated into whatever it can be, and ambiguities resolved by asking questions. So whether it's block diagrams, sketches, natural language description, saying, hey, build this particular screen, I could see somebody saying, hey, use this database, Postgres, copy every screen and menu item and button of Salesforce onto it. It's conceivable that will happen.
Yeah. Likely, very likely. Yeah. And I think like there are lots of companies where you just take a screenshot, convert it into a code with an app that's actually certainly happening. Yeah. How do you use AI on a daily basis?
So obviously I use a lot of ChatGPT.
Okay.
That's the most obvious way. Every time I do email, Gmail's using AI for me.
Yeah.
So many aspects. And then, of course, you can use DALL-E and all kinds of products to do interesting things.
In the quest to AGI, what do you think might be a reason that we may not be able to achieve that?
So today, the people who are really developing large language models believe in something called scaling laws, well understood. And all the data says scaling laws will work for multiple more orders of magnitude of scale. That is our current belief, but it's possible we run out of, and there are respectable people who believe, academics who believe we will run out of scaling laws. There's other believers that AI can be better done with other models. So I'm very excited about symbolic logic, for example, neurosymbolic approaches. I'm very excited about probabilistic approaches. So each religion has its adherents, and I suspect AI will become more diverse over time while the language models continue to grow a lot and scale a lot and have a lot more capability. So it's entirely possible. We can add 2 plus 2, but we don't need a calculator to do that.
Mm-hmm.
An LLM can compute that pretty easily. But if I say, here's a 30-digit number, multiply it with a 30-digit number, we're probably better off having the LLM call a tool like
Yeah.
a calculator or a computer and do that computation,
Yeah.
even if the LLM could do it. It would do it much more efficiently.
Yeah.
So it's possible LLMs do all the reasoning, and it's also possible some other tool does that reasoning much more efficiently at 1/100th the cost, for example. Very hard to predict, but clearly today we should be experimenting with all those things and allow for diversity to
Yeah.
emerge.
And if scaling laws do hold with, let's say, the current architecture of transformers and others, do you think compute will ever be a bottleneck?
Well, if the scaling laws hold, compute will be a bottleneck.
Yeah.
We don't have enough chip capacity
Yeah.
in the world. One of my other predictions is most of the access of the internet will be by agents, not by humans.
Mm.
Think about it. So if there's 20 billion agents running around and they're running around 24 hours a day, you need so much chip capacity. We don't have that chip capacity to build that thing for humanity.
Yeah.
So we'll have to build a lot more chips. Once you build that, we'll have to build a lot more computers and data centers and then power generation. So, these are hard choices because they're so unpredictable today.
Yeah. I mean, if 20 billion agents are going to be running, there is just so much of security issues that also can easily crop up there, right? So how do you think, I know you're big on this, like how do you think about safely deploying AGI?
I believe once a problem is defined, humans do a pretty good job of solving it.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I tell you precisely how? No. Can I tell you I think it'll be solved? Most likely.
Mm. Got it. Got it. And in terms of just like coming
But
back,
I'm an optimist. I'm not a pessimist.
yeah, I know that. I have a question at the end for you in terms of your predictions. Just even like coming back to the developer thing.
Mm-hmm.
Today, like whoever you want to call as a 10x developer is somebody who can translate a particular requirement into a very scalable architecture, writes clean code that's very secure. A bunch of these things are actually going to be quote unquote outsourced to an AI agent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think will be like the characteristics of the future 10x developer?
Very hard to predict. Very hard. Today you could conceive at least the architecture will be done by
Yeah.
a developer, but
Yeah.
I could see why an AI could do the architecture too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's hard to imagine a world that is very, very likely, which is all expertise anywhere, whether you're talking about an oncologist or
Yeah.
an endocrinologist or a structural engineer
Yeah.
or an architect or a coder, is in an AI. I think it's very likely. I don't know when. And it may get slowed down because society resists it. That's very possible. So, with my predictions, have a set of reasons why none of this may happen and why it may slow down or not happen. But it's very unpredictable. I wouldn't guess.
This one was actually not even in my thing, but as you're just saying, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts. Humans are very unforgiving for when it comes to machines. You want the absolute right answer. If a self-driving car gets into an accident, it gets way more press than a human, even though rationally speaking, it might be a better driver than humans. So if you imagine the future systems to all be through the machines, is going to be quote unquote reasoning through AGI, where it's not 100% correct, but it's more of reasoning systems. Do you think that will in itself inhibit the ability to adapt because it's hard to rewire our mental models that have
And I
been.
think the thing to realize is us engineers live in the world of reason and logic.
Mm,
Most of the world operates in the world of narratives, storytelling. And people can tell stories. I mean, you look at the economy today. The Biden economy has been much better than what Trump did, but the narrative
Hmm.
is the opposite.
Yeah.
So we will have to learn how to tell the right narratives, and people who want to resist AI will tell the opposite narrative. We've seen this repeatedly, it'll happen again,
Hmm.
and it'll be a question of who's better at storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. So we're coming to the end, Vinod. I'm going to give you a name of an industry, and I like your prediction on how AI is going to transform in
Mm,
5 years.
okay.
Not 10, not 20, because I
Mhm.
don't want dystopian, utopian views. Even though you're an optimist, maybe in 5 years itself you'll predict something utopian. So I'll give an industry, tell me how AI is going to transform.
Mhm.
Education,
Personal tutors for every kid on the planet that are near free.
transportation,
Self driving public transit systems, that's one of my predictions. And we can start to remove most cars from most cities because a public transit system based on self-driving vehicles and closed systems will be far better than owning a chauffeured car. You'll get there faster, cheaper, much more predictably.
entertainment, movies, and music.
Almost all music will be AI assisted. There'll be human music, human plus AI, and AI only. There'll be stories written by AIs and AI plus humans. And there'll be a much wider range of content driven by AI.
Hmm.
Even anime and movies will be done by AI.
Healthcare,
Almost all expertise, like primary care doctors, oncologists, within 5 years will start to be FDA approved as an app as a doctor.
5 years, right? We're
Five
talking.
years.
Okay, wow, that's pretty. That'll be pretty amazing. Venture capital.
Hard to tell.
I
Many
know you're in
people,
the venture assistance industry, but
yeah,
like, yeah,
I think the thing to understand is in all these areas, people will practice because they love practicing, whether you're a physician or something else. And a physician with an AI assist will be better than the physician by
yeah.
themselves. I'll still be practicing in 5 years,
Hmm.
but it may be there's an AI. I think it'll take much longer in venture capital only because we don't have many data sources.
Got it. And finally, developer.
I think everybody will be 10x better than they are today in what they can do.
Got it. Awesome. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Vinod, for
Thank you.
participating in HackerRank AI Day. Thank you.